We can begin. We can begin live. You're streaming. Може да почне предавanje ako svi spremni.
Može da počne?
Da.
Hello. Yes. Hi everyone. It's my great honor and pleasure to welcome again in this city of Belgrade our famous guests and really great people that are actually doing what we are playing with today. And I hope these people do not need introduction, but I'll say it anyway. We have Jasmina from Women in Black, and more importantly, the Internet of Women Things. And I think it has to be louder than that. And her lovely Bruce. And I think we could just start. Thank you.
Dobro večer, onda ja ću ustati, neću pasti odavde. And I'm going to speak in English. I'm told that there are a lot of people who don't speak Serbian, no? So I'll speak in English, yeah? Although this is the very first time I'm speaking about Kaza Jasmina and Internet of Women thing, which is going to be the main topic of my talk tonight, in Belgrade. And I'm really pleased that finally I'm going to do it here because it's a project that's over. We heard also officially, basically, it's over today. But I'm going to tell you, Kaza Jasmina, if you haven't heard about it, it was called, so-called House of the Future. Actually, it was House of the Present, and I can say it's also House of the Past because we decided to do it 3 years ago in Turin. And it was a personal project that Bruce and I had, like to make it our own private home. And for some reason, we couldn't do it privately because the building in Torino, you see, this is how it looked. It was supposed to be demolished. And so, you know, legally, we couldn't do it. But I was surrounded. It was in Fab Lab, in an abandoned building. I was surrounded by brilliant geeks, just like you are. Fab Lab, the first lab in Italy, the biggest lab in Italy, Fab Lab. Arduino offices, makers, you know, and other geeks, engineers, and all that kind of people. So I said, why not do it anyway? We said, why don't we do it and just, you know, make something? It's hard to demolish something once you do it, and this is how we do it. We had buildings in Torino, Italy, where most of the buildings are abandoned, 30% of the beautiful buildings are abandoned. So we started doing it like from the scratch without money. And Bruce and I, the first night we spent sleeping there, you know, sleeping bags. And there was nothing but rats and pigeons and fantastic internet. Now that was a good start. You know, we could fantasize about how this connected home would look like and how it would be different from all those usual places. On one side, the places you inherit from your family, from the country you come from, and we both come from different countries, so it's different inheritance, which is kind of a burden. But on the other hand, living in Italy, where everything is so fancy, where everything is so clean, like the design, of course, the best design in the world, like, you know, Armani's home of the future. My God in heaven, you won't spend more than 3 days there, 3 hours, because it's so white, it's so alienating, it's science fiction. I wanted a home which was, you could smell where there was dirt, where the children could stay. It's a home, for I would say the word home, Kaza Jasmina. And Massimo Banzi was very happy to have us there. He's the Arduino guy, you know, the good guy. He's again on top of Arduino. So basically we made it happen all together. And after 3 years, this is our TKV. You see, she was our guest in residence. And, the Kraljica Villa, she did this neighborhood, one of the biggest artists, street artist from Belgrade. She was there, she did the walls. It became like, this is the jury of the Electronic Art Festival. Bruce and I are jurying, and this is Paola Antonelli, MoMA Design Museum. And this is Samantha Cristoforetti, the woman who spent most time in outer space. She's an astronom, she's Italian astronaut. And this is our jury. And now it's like a place of art where we put electronic art. It's a residence for artists. It is also a bed and breakfast, which is the first intention, of the whole thing. Like people come there, rented people who are like normal tourists, or maybe some designers. They have their interventions, their ideas. They use the house. They say this is enough. This is too much, And now this is where we start the real deal. Now after like 1 year that I was spending time, really literally all day and night we were there working and we were happy about it. All of a sudden, I realized that I was surrounded by 99% men. It was all men. They were brilliant, I must repeat again, But how can you make a home without women? There was something missing really. And I got really upset about that also because I'm not a designer, I'm not an architect, but I'm like, I'm a hacker in a way, I'm an activist. So I started looking for my women somewhere around. They were somewhere around. Like they were like hiding behind the screens. And so I organized a workshop, like one day, brainstorming, it wasn't even a workshop. And I wanted them to tell me, these are women in IoT. I wanted them to tell me, how do they feel about IoT? Why are not there? Why are not taking part in it? And I had a lot of here. So I wrote this manifesto, Internet of Women Things. This is a woman who was on the poster by an Italian, what's Campiello? Is Campiello his name? Yeah, he was a famous Italian, how do you say, designer?
Commercial artist.
Yeah, graphic designer. Anyway, this is a famous commercial for electricity of the beginning of the 20th century. So we redid it, we made it as a woman of IoT. Now the woman is connecting, the connected home. It's again the same kind of the woman of the future. Look, just the same, it's only IoT. So now the girl that told me after speaking to them for some time, I realized there were 7 points, which are the major points, which I'm going to tell you now shortly. I'm going to, what are the points in Internet of Women Things that are different from Internet of Things that you know very well. The first one, of course, is the usual positive inclusion. Literally, they're not there. Like, the 2 women that were there on the conference that I went in Amsterdam. One was a secretary, even though she was highly trained, and the other one was the mom of the organizer. And she was putting in the money, they were doing literally the work, and the guys were speaking, So one of the first things is that they literally have to be in a certain number there, Doesn't matter, wife, daughters, whoever, they have to be there and they have to speak out. The second point is positive seclusion, very important. The positive seclusion is something we know very well from, I'm a hardcore feminist, and I've been feminist in all kind of fields, I know very well that women, from experience, nobody's born a feminist, for heaven's sake, You just realize at a certain point that you cannot function in a way that would feel good if you're not in an environment which is so-called positive seclusion. When women are sitting together alone, without men around, they are more free to say how they feel about things, and especially also about Internet of Things, because they're less competitive, they like to work together, they have less self-assurance, and they like to fail. Very important, they like to fail. And you know very well that one of the mottos is fail, 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 in this kind of range. So all these failures very often can be successes. Just give it a time, sometimes you lose your way, you find another way, a better way. Now that is a way that definitely women have more than men. The third one, critical thinking. How many times have you heard that women are bad drivers? I was a very bad driver because my car was too big. Now, technology has grown better for women, also for meaning people who are smaller and less physical, because of of course, technology and contraception are very important for emancipation of women in the 20th century. But still, a lot of these new inventions, really new things that are made, are so kind of futurist and, futurist in a way. How, the science fiction. Okay, we have the science fiction right here, and I really like him very much, and I like his work and everything, But how many things that you predict really never come true, or just ridiculous, And the critical thinking that we have, that women were telling about, was mostly about this kind of objects that are usually useless, superfluous, or just not, like how to say, not fit for them, like a changing table for a baby that an IKEA engineered person, like with all the smart things inside, was this high. And Italian women are this big, So, I mean, it's so obvious, but so ridiculous that you do such kind of stuff. The fourth point is, this is a very important point, and I'm not speaking in a way, this point just came as they came. It's not a matter of importance, The fourth point is policy and politics. Through history, women's bodies have been policed, by religion, by society, name it, And they still have this, it's some kind of genetic memory they have. I believe in genetic memory, Their body is controlled by somebody outside them. So the very actual problems that we have with Internet of Things, meaning the privacy, and that somebody is taking your data and controlling you, is something that women understand immediately. So when we're doing Kaza Yasmina and all these workshops we were doing, the first thing that we say, how can we not be connected? Can we have a place where we're not connected? To whom are we connected? When we think about, and then we're not thinking about our own clouds, or very important issues like, we did it. We have a cloud, Albino cloud with Kaza Yasmina, and in the post-Snowden era or post-internet era, it's one of the biggest issues. And policy, who controls whom, to whom we are connected, who's provided. This is the things that women think about. Firewalls, always. 5. So, the thing is that 5 is design fiction. Okay, women like stories about objects. So when you design something, when you invent something, you don't start from scratch, and you want it to have nothing starts from scratch. Nothing is invented just like that. It always has a history. And why not make this history emotional? Why not make this history something that belongs to your fantasy, whatever you like it? They like stories around objects. So retrofitting things you love, or inventing it because of a fairy tale behind it, whatever. They like the stories, and it is called in Italian fantasia al potere, and design fiction is all about it. It's a new thing. It's a thing that, what's the name of the Californian guy did it in, who is his, New Future Laboratory, Julian Blinker. However, we have now, in Kaza Yasmina, the last workshop that we did on design fiction, it was all girls. It was really young girls. And they did awesome things because they like it, they prefer it only to tech things that are, innovative, And then there is an approach which is interesting, which is I call it just do it. Because it is something that Samantha Cristoforetti, the astronaut woman, told me. She said, look, if I ever thought about myself as a woman, I would have never arrived to this point, because I'm from a poor family in a small village, and my family wanted to educate only my brother because he's a man, But I wanted to be an engineer, an astronaut. So she said, I joined the army, and I was all men, especially Italian army, terrible, it's all men dressed like men with those silly hats, and And then she basically managed to get up there where she did in the space, thanks to some very strange coincidence that she was spending time in USA base, I remember, maybe Houston, with some Russians who said, wouldn't it be fun to have an Italian woman with us in Cosmos? She said, are you joking? She said, no, we want it really seriously. So basically they took her up there, and she spent months on end there, and she came back. You see, she's the woman in the middle. And what she was talking about when she was in this new environment when many things were completely different. Let's say there was no gravity, for instance, and everything else functioned in a different way, was connected in a different way. She was thinking, how would you come to apply what she's learning there when coming back to the ground? How is it to be pregnant out there? How is it to have a period? How is it, she was thinking from a human point of view. And actually, when she came back, she got a baby. Well, that's very interesting. She just had a baby after having. And now the seventh point, which is the one which I always call the most important for the success of the design of Internet of Things, and about which women think much more than men. So these objects that you are thinking about, that we are thinking about, which will have success, will not be those which are the most out there, which are the most expensive, which are the least expensive. It will be those which have, which are adapted to the cultural differences of the place. Meaning, Torino is different from Rome, very different. Imagine how much Torino is different from Belgrade or from US. And I always use the same example: coffee. In US, in Serbia, you know how you make the so-called today Serbian coffee. You grind the coffee, you sit there, you pour it, you have a cigarette in silence and all. It's a ritual, but it's always a ritual. In Italy, you make this poison coffee, fast, it has to be perfect, absolutely perfect, otherwise Italians spit it, It has to have the level of poison that it has to have. The machines have to be, like perfect, absolutely perfect. We have Lavazza coffee, Lavazza woman came, and she says she's Internet of Living Things, And then you have the Americans who only press the buttons, I have those long coffees with the long, and they press the button and they walk, with the coffee. So you see, the coffee, Internet of Things coffee machine has to be different, in every country. And not only the coffee, everything else. So the cultural differences are those which will determine the success of the things. So this is the manifesto. And with this manifesto, all of a sudden, I became famous among designers, among artists, people who know much more than I do. And so now we have shows. We have shows of Internet of Women Things. We have, brainstorming, maker things. I was in Zurich with maker women who just did things. And all of a sudden, I started also, oh yes, very important thing. I was also invited to contribute on the Feminist Internet Manifesto, which was made in London. I think it's still underway at the University of London. Awesome girls, They were there for 3 days. I mean, 3 final days, but they're like for 2 months making stuff. They're like between makers, philosophers, artists, and they have these 7 points also. They say feminist internet cooperates, eradicates, redefines, confronts, educates. You see, and the site is up there. It's UAL. This is their site, London. You don't have it. No, we didn't pick it up. We didn't have internet. So anyway, you will find it. That's something new. It's underway. So after this, the thing that happened to me, I started getting really bold. I thought that I could invent things also, that I could also produce them. And I have a couple of ideas which I would like to tell you about, because I would like really, since I don't know how to make them yet myself or design them, but think about them. I was thinking about Casa Yasmina and how you can change the look and the interface, and also how to say the daily life if you have the possibilities of Internet of Things. And for me, you know how much money women spend in Italy for their underwear, So it looks beautiful, and they don't do it for boyfriend, for heaven's sake, They do it for themselves, They spend enormous amount of money, not only on Internet, clothes generally speaking, but underwear is something that nobody sees, because it's something, you have to dry, you wash, you spend that. And also in Torino, for example, you're prohibited to put your laundry outside, because the city is protected. So it's like really a hidden value, We show it to each other like drugs, And in every flat, you have a corner. You have a corner which is like something that is neglected. So I thought, why not put a smart laundry line, okay? And it's doable. I spoke to people, to engineers. You can do, it's like a tree, you know, that changes color. You put the laundry, and when it's dry, it comes down, you pick it up, and then when it goes up, you know, in order to get dry, and basically it's always there. You don't even have to put stuff in the cupboard. It's, you know, exposed. It's an element of beauty. You're not ashamed of it. It's coming out of your laundry by itself, you know. I love that one. The second one I really love is, which is also simple and doable, and Tucker V. Meiser said it's a great idea. He told me also that it's called the smart faucet, Prosecco faucet. Prosecco is an Italian bubbly wine, which I love, you know, and it's like champagne and much cheaper than champagne. And this is the first year it's sold all around the world, much more than champagne, okay? And it's something that's very easy to make, because you buy the white wine, you buy you know, the machine that makes the bubbles, you do an Arduino in the middle. I don't know how you do it physically, you know, but that's basically the idea. And then you just open it, and it's like draft beer, always cold, you know, always fresh. The best part is that you can choose your Prosecco. I mean, you can make it yourself. You can choose your white wine. You can choose how much bubbly it can be. So you make your own thing. You're in control of your Prosecco. You control of your means of production. You know, you're doing it yourself. You're a maker. You're not a user. You're not a client. I hate those words, you know. And also in Italy, there are people who never drink water. They only drink wine. And Tucker V. Meister said, you know, homes were made first, and faucets only later. I mean, water came later, so why not have a Prosecco one? The third one we have is, how am I doing with time-wise? Okay, the third one is hamam. Okay, hamam is Turkish, yeah, hamam, yeah, where about it? You understand it? Because I say hamam somewhere else, nobody understands it. Sauna, but it's not a sauna. I say, you know, this is again thinking about life and thinking about women's life. Girls, I have a girl, grown-up woman now, but she had many girlfriends. They would come and they would close themselves for hours in the bathroom. You know, for hours. I don't know what they were doing. They were like crying, they were making makeup, they were changing clothes, you know, and they would come out, they would enter in 7 and get out, you know, in 7, go out for half an hour and come back home. Most of the time they were spending in bathroom, you know. And now, how many hours all of us spend in bathrooms? I think it's such a place of intimacy. Whenever I go into a flat and I have to stay there, you know, I always look at it as a big bathroom. For me, it's more important than having a big kitchen, you know. It has to have a big bathroom. Now, bathrooms can be fantastic if you think about it. We had a workshop of how to make it a place of fantasy, a place of where you relax, where you can think, where you can cry. We can, you know, we can do whatever you want there, you know. Make love or make wars, not wars, no. So that was this, and that project is basically underway because we have architects who came to Internet of Women Thing workshop that we did, and you know, Italian architects, they hardly, when you say Internet of Things, they get frightened. You know, they say, what's that? You know, I mean, because they have beautiful tile, they have beautiful bathtubs, you know, but they don't want it to be smart. They want it, you know, for them it's enough as it is. Tradition is the most important thing. But when we start like telling these artigiani, how you say artigiani, craftspeople that they think can get better and easier and cheaper and smarter, and you know, they went to the little training that we do in Fab Lab. They pay 50 euros, they have a couple of workshops, and then they start thinking in a different way, just like me, for heaven's sake, you know, I do. So we have that thing too, and okay, we have many other things. I won't tell you about those, I'm still pondering. I lost my imposter syndrome complex, it still kicks in time and again, because I was invited a couple of times to lecture on Politecnico di Torino, which is completely male university, you know, but you have still this very cooperative guys, they're postgraduates, and I was thinking, what can I tell these guys? They know everything and they know nothing, and all of a sudden I realized I'm thinking out of the box. I can say all the stupidity, you know, because I have no no problems. I'm not an engineer. I don't know what's possible, what's impossible. But what was an excellent feedback was that they could actually tell me, they told me that my thinking was doable, that they could do all the things that I was telling them, but they never crossed their mind, you know. So it was, I started really realizing that we should cooperate that way, you know, people who don't know and people who know in one branch, they do very well. And for the end, I want to say a couple of things that I think are very important for Internet of Women things. One is, I don't want my mattress to outsmart me. I want a smart mattress, but I don't want to be outsmarted by the silly smart mattress, because I have a smart mattress. We invested a lot of money in a mattress, okay? And this is the consequence. We bought one very expensive, one middle expensive, and one cheap. They're all smart. They take the form of your body, they do whatever they do, you know the smart mattress, but you have this. So I realized with this smart mattress that I was sleeping too long, first of all, and second, that I was waking so stiff, you know, I was like, it was like some kind, it didn't let me move. So, I mean, I got neck pain, I got body pain because my mattress was too smart, you know. I mean, really, I don't want to do that, you know. And there are also other things that I don't want to outsmart. You know, I don't want my machines that I have to open in order to, that I have to press 7 buttons in order to make them work. I want one button, and stuff like that. I also think that, okay, I lost my, no, I also think that we should work together, work with consensus, and work with joy. The moment that when we make this smart decisions of smart homes where you're going to stay all day, the moment you lose the joy and the moment you spend your time fighting each other, because that's what's happening in this field of Internet of Things, which is the field of money and power. And that is why it's male dominated, and that is why people fight each other like it happened in Albino until recently, and that's what's going to happen. It's happening everywhere. We're losing a big opportunity, and we're losing a big war to the big five, Apple, to the stats. And if we don't become all activists and all hackers that you are, and I'm an activist, you know, I think we're going to pay a great price of something that was really not a utopia, but a reality. I don't want to go back. I don't want to live without internet. It's like I don't want to live without computers or without electricity. So my only choice in this is to hack the existing things. I cannot reinvent an iPhone. I like my iPhone, but I don't like what it's doing to me. I'm waging a war with my iPhone these days. I will ask somebody to help me with that, you know. But I must find a way how to control something which is controlling me at this moment. And a little bit of coding won't hurt all of us. So code, even if it's boring and even if you're a woman. It will help us all. Thank you.
Okay, that was great. You can have some beer now. That's going to be swell. So yeah, I'm Bruce Sterling, and yeah, I'm the guy in the back here. So you know, thanks for inviting us to your actual no kidding hackathon here, which has got like beer and pizza and hardware and software, and even a world famous hacker pioneer in the front row. Lee Melton saying, you guys have got it going on pretty hard. So, you know, so we're happy to be here, you know, and to explain what's going on. So, you know, Yasmin explained why we built this Kazi Yasmina project, and I want to talk about business and, you know, money and power, and you know, how an experiment like this fits in the kind of grander scheme of contemporary global techno-capitalism. So, you know, we're into the maker scene, and we built this place, this little house. It's a kind of maker culture intervention. It's a propaganda, the deed. I mean, we hang out with guys who are fab labbers. So we're like hanging out at the fab lab and like, why don't you fab a house? They're like, well, I don't know. I mean, well, we've got all this room upstairs. Why don't you just like fab an apartment? And we'll like help you. And you know, we're famous and we'll get a lot of cool guests and we'll do all kinds of nifty stuff in your fab house. So, you know, we fabbed the house and it's been about 3 years and now we know what that's like. But we also get a lot of people through the house who are not artists or writers or journalists or activists or feminists or cyberpunks. They're industry people. They're from Bosch. They're from Google. They're from Base N, who are probably our closest friends in Kazi Yasmina. So Base N is a company from Finland, and it's an old Internet of Things company. They've been around like 15 years. They came out of the telecoms industry, and they're like industry veterans, and they're really in the business of doing it. So we hang out with them, and we know them pretty well. And I'm going to talk about some of their principles, not Yasmina's principles of like, let's have justice for women, and quit scanning my underwear, and my iPhone's becoming a tyrant. Okay, those are all political, moral things. These guys are in business at Base N, and they're specifically in business of running a big Internet of Things company. So, what do you want if you're going to actually have an Internet of Things business? Well, you need a 10 or 12 million in venture capital first. And you know, the complete Kazi Yasmina budget over 3 years, maybe 100 grand. I mean, counting salaries, entertainment, mostly retrofitting the building. You know, we got a lot of money from the city to help to back up fixing a dead building. But you know, it's a lot like this bar. And in fact, Kazi Yasmina has a bar in it. You go in there and have Prosecco and, you know, really have a nice drink. So, you know, it's very similar to this kind of Malasava bohemian situation. It's low budget, but it's just got lots of cool, weird stuff in it. Little IoT gizmos. We did some work. We got an IoT hacker thermostat. I mean, we're right next door to the Arduino office. We got tons of electronics. You know, we built a door lock, we built a lighting system, we built a watering system, we got like the Arduino garden. We have various little tech art projects, little collectibles kind of hanging around the place. You know, so the industry thinks it's really cute, and you know, people in the design world think we're adorable, and you know, we were already famous, now we're more famous. But this is what's really going on. I mean, these are the heavy players. Intel Capital, GE Ventures, Andreessen Horowitz, Qualcomm, Foundry. You know, this is like hundreds of millions of dollars. You can just see them acquiring all these little companies. They haven't managed to acquire Arduino yet, but Arduino is about the size of like one of these little specks. So, what do you do if you're going to run a company like one of these companies? And you know, you actually want to be in the business. Well, number one, says Base N, our friends from Base N in Finland. Pasi Hori, he's the chief executive officer of Base N, quite a dear friend of ours at Kazi Yasmina. Shared a lot of Prosecco with this guy. Principle number one, be paranoid about security. Be paranoid about security, he says, not like concerned, you know, or investing some money. Be really worried all the time about attacks from state-supported actors, the NSA, Russian cyber criminals. Okay, Yasmina and I are not in the business of being paranoid about security. We don't have enough money to properly protect ourselves from state-supported actors. And we're not going to be able to do that. I don't think $12 million is going to be able to do that. Del Watt can't do that. I mean, they got taken down by hackers. Credit card guys get taken down by hackers. The Swift code system gets taken down by hackers. I mean, if you're in the Internet of Things and you're on the Internet and you're using TCP/IP, you're really facing some very heavy-duty, very well-financed, global-scale, massive criminal action. So, and that's probably the number one problem that the Internet of Things has. You just hook up a thing, put it on the Internet, you'll be owned like that. Okay. Issue number two, ensure scalability. This is what Posy says. Okay, I made a project at my hacker thing, and it seems to work, and it's great. And like a guy comes along from GE Ventures, and he's like, yeah, we need 100 million. Can we have them by April? Okay, that's a scalability problem. It's like, have you thought through the scalability? It's like, okay, who's going to build it? Who's going to finance it? How are we going to ship it? I mean, where are we going to stockpile the objects? Right? Okay, we don't have any scalability at Casa Yasmina because there's only one. But we could conceivably take over a building like, say, this Eagle Hills building, which is right down the street, looming over you like a giant skyscraper. We could go in there and say, why don't we take over this giant smart building, which is like financed by offshore wealth, and like just rewire all the little housing in there with like some cool Arduino stuff. And we'll just like put in all kinds of door locks and like smart lights and so forth. Okay, you'd be owned. You'd be owned immediately if you tried to build 1,000 Casa Yasmina units inside a large, valuable real estate structure. So, you know, he wants to ensure scalability, and in fact, BaseN does a lot of work in building information management, which is basically not smart houses like ours, a little smart clubhouse, but smart skyscrapers and smart, you know, suburban developments and smart banks and giant, big, shiny, intelligent buildings. Okay, we can't scale up. There's no way. Commandment number 3, design your product as global. It says, okay, you're on the internet, you never know who's going to find you, who's going to send you email. You might get a business offer from Argentina, next day it's South Africa, next day it's Samoa. Okay, you got to have some kind of pitch for every one of those guys. It's like, yeah, we'll send in some experts, we'll come onto your site, we're going to build this stuff for you, we're going to like make it happen for you. Okay, there's a lot of global interest in Casa Yasmina. We get guests there from all over the world. We get email from all over the world. We even get journalists from all over the world. There aren't Casa Yasminas all over the world. We can't globalize it. There's only 2 of us. We can go on tour, and we kind of do. I mean, like this month we've been in like 5 cities, and the topic of our cute little smart house comes up wherever we go, because anybody who looks us up on the internet immediately knows this, because they can see it through social media and, you know, Google and all the rest of it. Okay, we can be global propagandists. We can't globalize our little house. Even if we put it all up in Make magazine and like photograph everything in it, the maker scene doesn't actually do that. I mean, they don't make it 100,000 versions of the same thing. They don't make it the same place everywhere. And furthermore, we're actually kind of keen about our house being local. We actually think it should be like a house. We think it should have Turinese local character, like Prosecco and not champagne. You know, and Italian maker furniture. And, you know, people should be speaking Italian in there. There should be lots of Italian art and Italian books. I think it's like a home, right? And a home, you know, a home is a problem. Okay, so if you go and see like a Google smart home, is Google even on this list? Probably not. Anyway, if you go out and see a Google home in the future, it is global. I mean, they always look exactly like airport restaurants, right? They're kind of devoid of character. Everything's plastic, everything's antiseptic, and there's no local character. We wanted to work against that. But that's not what you want to do if you're from BaseN and Posy Huri. You really want to be global. And, you know, and you have to invest a lot of money and prepare to do these kind of business ventures. Okay. Commandment number 4, and he's got 10 of them. Build and develop multiple watchdogs and fall-over mechanisms. He's warning against single points of failure where a single glitch in your code suddenly blows up 100,000 units out in the field. Okay, and this happens. It happened to a famous smart lock company. They tried to update all the smart locks they had installed, somewhere around 50,000 of them. They screwed them up, they bricked them. Luckily, they bricked open. If they had bricked all the locks shut, people would not have been able to get into their homes or into their businesses. They would have had to claw their way in with crowbars and blowtorches, all for a single line of bad code on a smart lock, which was distributed worldwide over the internet. right? Okay, that's a very severe thing to do, but it's also like really a problem. So, you know, we don't do that at Casa Yasmina. If our lights work at all, we're thrilled. It's like, oh look, the circuit closed, the lights came on. Do we have 5 ways to control the lights? No. Do we have 5 ways to get into the door? We managed to make an electronic door lock. Every time it malfunctions, we either have to use a metal key or climb into the window with a wooden ladder that comes down off the roof. We can't make a super lock. I mean, these are just like grad students who are sort of hanging out at Arduino. We're thrilled to have a lock at all. So he wants multiple watchdogs and failover mechanisms. I think those are very good ideas if you're really in the business, which we're not really. Commandment number 5, prepare for ever faster release cycles. He thinks it's going to go faster and faster. I don't believe that. I actually think the internet is going to slow down. Now, why is that going to happen? It's because of the death of Moore's law. And also because of industry consolidation. Things can move a lot faster in the IoT than they are. But basically, Google and Apple are recruiting all the talent. You know, they're just snapping people up, Nest and so forth. Nest would have been doing a lot more as a private company than they do as a Google-acquired sub area. So, you know, Nest was going very hot, Google grabbed them, and they did pretty much nothing for 4 or 5 years. Okay, that's not the sign of a dynamic industry where cycles are changing really fast. That's the sign of industry consolidation where major players are using Detroit-style strategies to snap up. That's what's going to happen. Okay, commandment number 6, build for always-on operation. Okay, you're global, you got customers all over the world, you got to like be ready for any time zone at any time, you got to like experts on call, you know, somebody in every time zone, be ready to support the thing worldwide, 26/7, 345, including leap seconds on leap year. Okay, Casa Yasmina, we never do that. Most of the time, every night there's nobody in it. Everything's shut down, it's completely dead. We can't afford to run it 365. We don't collect data around 65. We don't care. I mean, we're happy when the house is offline. Commandment number 7, store all the raw data. It says if you get anything from your sensors, just put it in a giant data bank. You never know if it's going to be useful. Okay, this is a very good idea for like monetizing stuff that you didn't know you were able to sell. That's also a really good way to get into political trouble now, because somebody's going to say, why are you saving all this stuff about me and my business? Right? I mean, this is what made Facebook billionaires. This is what made Google billionaires. We'll just like do surveillance marketing. We'll save all the data we possibly can. Then you're sitting on heaps of data. What if somebody grabs it? What if somebody hacks it? What if somebody leaks it? What if police demand it? What if somebody else's police demand it? What if the Turkish secret police demand it? What if the Chinese grab it? What if the Russians grab it? Your heap of data that you piled up, not caring what it was, or how safe it was, or what the political implications were. All right, this was a good idea for them. It's the tradition in the business. I don't know if that tradition can go on. But if you accept that that tradition can't go on, it actually damages their business model very severely. Like, wait a minute, you're saying we can't make new profits out of gathering all the data? We're not supposed to invent cool new ways to analyze it? Well, what the hell are we doing? And why are we here? At that point, we're just a home automation company. We're not in the Internet of Things at all. You're forbidding us to innovate. We want permissionless innovation where we can just steal all the data we can about you. Okay, that's how it is. I don't know if it can go on. Commandment number 8, build telemetry to everything. Okay, you want to find out what your customers are doing with everything you do. Basically, you're kind of spying on them. You put sensors on it. You're sure you can kind of go out, see what things are doing with all your property at all times. I understand why you would want to do that. I think it's probably a recipe for industrial espionage and all kinds of war. In Casa Yasmina, we thought about building telemetry into Casa Yasmina. We were going to put a little robot in there with a kind of wandering iPhone-style live video, so that guests could kind of just wander around to the place. We realized we just didn't want people looking. I mean, even if we could build a cute robot and have people moving around and look at us, maybe we could get a celebrity guest to show up, like Julian Assange. She loves these little mobile robots. Okay, it's not worth the trouble, and also there's something objectionable about it. We just don't want to be connected, as Yasmina says. And in fact, I think the value in connectivity is more valuable when there's less connectivity. Like a complete webcam thing is boring, but like an actual conversation over video is actually more useful. And it's because it's rare, right? I mean, and it's properly valued. So telemetry to everything, maybe for him, never for us. Commandment number 9, and I'm closing in here. We're almost done. I'm looking at this beer greedily. Maintain and grow your intellectual property. That's how they make money. It's patents, licensing patents, intellectual property, patenting stuff, copywriting stuff, protecting your brand jealously, etc., etc. Okay, they don't have any way to make money without that. They can't be open source like us. We're sloppily open source. I mean, anybody who wants to do anything, we're kind of cool about it. But that doesn't mean that we don't have problems. We've actually got a lot of organizational problems in open source activity. They don't have much to do with intellectual property, but they've got a lot to do with, what's the right word for it? Fame, really, fame, like social property. So, we got a lot of guys in the Arduino world, and they don't collaborate all the time because they're prima donnas, right? And they associate their own name with a project. I mean, they don't copyright it, but they're using their own sort of private fame as a brand. They have the kind of fame that us authors have. Like Bruce Sterling's a famous guy, not because I'm Bruce Sterling TM or Bruce Sterling Inc. or Bruce Sterling Limited or the Bruce Sterling brand. I'm famous because I'm an author, right? And my name is associated with my books. And then when somebody brings me a book, I sign my name. It's like, oh yes, his name is on my book. Okay, that's like literary fame. It's a cultural kind of fame. And that kind of fame is all over the open source movement. And it actually gets in people's way a lot because they don't care about who built it or who invented it, but they're very jealous about who gets credit for it and who's famous for it and who didn't get mentioned and who get left out. And very commonly, it's the women who get left out, because the women just get left out all the time. Nobody's in the business of making them famous, right? And they don't demand it. So that their many contributions to the open source movement are unfairly obscured. And not only that, but the people who have hung out at Casa Yasmina have generally become better known for doing it, and then they all go out and get straight jobs. Yeah, I mean, they just leave. They like go to Shanghai, or they go to Singapore, or they go to MIT, or they go work for Carlo Ratti, or and really, who would want to just stay in the Fab Lab your whole life, right? I mean, you kind of want an exit strategy from a situation like this. It's like, okay, I went and I did like this IoT house of the future. Like, why? Well, it was like kind of interesting, but what are you going to do next? Well, that's actually a problem. I'm going to go work for Fiat. I mean, they've got health insurance, right? And I could get promoted, and it looks good on my resume. So, we've had people come to the house, kind of do their cool thing, like they're volunteers, they're very public spirited, and then they just leave. Gifts that are given to us or objects that we have in the house. It's like, what's that thing in the corner? Oh, that was Filippo. Well, what was it? Well, he almost finished it, and then he had go to Brisbane, Australia. Well, when's Filippo going to be back? I mean, when is he going to conclude his cool open source project here for our open source house of the future? I don't know. I follow him on Facebook, and he's like, met a girl in Brisbane, and we may never see Filippo again. Okay, what do we do with this project? Do we throw it out? Do we set fire to it? Do we try to ship it to Australia? Do we just, accept that he was collaborating until he no longer collaborated? Which is actually what happens. And we're exactly the same way. I mean, we're the Bruce and Yasmina of Casa Yasmina, and we built the Turinese house of the future, but we're not in Torino all the time. Hardly ever. We're always on the road. We're in Texas, we're in Belgrade, we're in Austin, we're in San Francisco, Amsterdam, Zurich, Like you go to the house, it's like, where's Yasmina? I've got no idea. How about Bruce? He's in Ibiza. What's he doing in Ibiza? He's hanging out on the beach writing a novel. But when is he going to come back and like fix the chair or make this executive decision? He's not coming. He never says. We never know. And the same is true for everybody who's been involved in this project. Not that we don't enjoy it, right? But that's not a business, right? And we're not a business. We don't work for Casa Yasmina. We don't have jobs in Italy at all. We've never had a job in Italy, ever. We don't want any job in Italy. I mean, we have permission to stay, and we've got a fiscal code in case people want to give us money for some reason. There's no way we want to be employed by Arduino. We don't want to be employed by the Politecnico or anybody else. I mean, basically, we have this cool project where we built it with like an exit strategy where it kind of runs by itself. So, you know, now the guy who is sort of running the little foundation of Casa Yasmina just fired himself, and he's going to go work for Carlo Ratti at MIT. So now we're wondering what becomes of the house. Probably nothing. I mean, my suspicion is the house just continues more or less as it is, right? I mean, people will continue to make furniture for it, and we'll still have nice parties, and there'll be cool electronic art stuff going on, and, you know, and it'll be kind of a cool clubhouse. And it makes less money than this bar, but it costs less money than this bar. But it's basically a culture front that says culture front. It's like a maker culture front. And those are hard to shut down because they're more like, you know, they're more of an intervention than they are a business. So maintain and grow your intellectual property, commandment number 9. We're not going to do that. Brand, no. Fame, yeah. I mean, we're famous for doing it. We're probably going to get more famous. Even if it doesn't exist, we'll probably get more famous. Well, they were the guys who had the Cool Dead project. And you can't get away from that. I mean, that's the author's life. And then the last commandment, build in sustainability. Try to make sure that your core suppliers link your strategy to yours. Don't leave your product stranded. Have an exit strategy, etc., etc. Okay, you know, I wish we could have built a super sustainable building that would have been a house of the future for 100 years. That's not possible, okay? If you call yourself a house of the future, in 3 years you're going to be the house of the past. You're going to be old-fashioned. I mean, the things that were like really hip in 2014 are not hip in 2017, right? I mean, they're not the newest things. They're not the coolest things. They're not things nobody has heard of. And even the maker movement is no longer hip. I mean, guys, in the maker movement, if you've got like a really cool fab lab, it's generally in the basement of your corporation. The best fab labs in the world are all run by the big players now. Google has them, Apple has them, Bosch has them. They all know what fab labs are for. They offer them the way they offer, you know, the employees a cafeteria. So, you know, maker culture is not going to be famous and new all the time. The open source movement is almost 20 years old. The guys who were founding it are old and gray guys like me. You know, Stallman, I used to know Stallman when Stallman was young and handsome and not the terrible thing he is now. He used to come by my house, you know, I'd give Stallman a beer. We were like young guys together. Okay, we're not young guys, right? I mean, that's the actual sustainability problem. You know? And how do you deal with the problem of like sustainability in a subject like Casa Yasmina? I think that we thought would last 2 years. It's actually lasted 3 and will probably turn into some kind of weird legend and kind of peter away. The way you handle sustainability in that situation is cultural. You have to culturally link your project to past houses of the future, and you have to put it into a larger perspective and understand what you're doing, what you're playing, what you want out of it, and how to quit, or how to say yes and let somebody else handle it. That's what we have to offer you tonight. So thank you for your attention.
to ask if there are any questions while we still have them, but I'm sure we'll be here for a drink. We're gonna hang out with you.
It's too small for questions. Just talk to us.
Cool.
How dare you? I'm just like to fill some stuff here. It's an interesting guy.
You're old friends as well, aren't you?
Yes, we know each other.
We're gonna wait for the next slide. So, in a few minutes.
Well, I would point out that Blood and Gilbert has been a house guest.
Jacob. Hey. So, you need to come here as well. This is me, not just because. Okay, can we start? Woo! Okay. So, I'm going to present you here like two different stories. The first story you maybe heard before is related to this Facebook algorithmic factory and all of this research that was kind of strangely covered in Serbian media with the titles like Serbian professor knocked down Facebook or some really strange stories. But I will try now to explain you like what this research really is. And then I will switch to some new research that we are doing. And I'm really afraid to do that because it's still not finished. So you will probably see, the presentation that is made in Adobe Illustrator. So that means that it's still working file. But still, what I want to do is to try to make connection between this research that we did into the algorithms and something that is going much more deeper on the another level, so on the horizontal level, on the level of materiality of all of those devices that are part of this system. So for now, like few years, what we were trying to do, we were trying to kind of see what's going on behind. So we try to visualize different networks. We try to visualize different aspects of those invisible infrastructures that are out there. So this is, for example, Orion. Have a nice name, but basically it's one of the not so big internet service providers in Serbia. And then what we were doing, we were trying to understand, for example, because first we were trying to map, when we were browsing internet, all of those different networks that we are going through, but then we realized behind those networks, at the edges of these networks, you have a different trackers, you have a different companies that are basically sucking information out of your behavior. So, for example, this is the list of the Serbian website that we are visiting, the different international websites that people from Serbia are visiting, and different trackers that are there, and different companies that are basically sucking data out of this. Then we were researching different government agencies, how they are collecting data. This is, for example, one little part of our research related to how Serbian government is retaining metadata through internet service providers. Then we went like more deeper into trying to understand little changes, some kind of anomalies in behavior of individuals. So we were tracking as an individual, as a group of researchers, we were like following one group from Milano that is called the hacking team, and then by analyzing their metadata, we were able to understand the moments when there was something happening in their lives. We were able to understand where they move, how they move, with who they collaborate, and so on and so on. And then we went like, and this is the moment when we started to feel like some kind of data detectives. Basically, and this is for example, one research in which we were trying to spot different forms of like political actors in Serbia, mostly what we call bots. And this is, for example, visualization of all the comments on the top, I think, 10 Serbian news portals, and all of those bigger dots represent the comments with the same content. So that means those are some kind of mistakes of those political votes. And we are trying to feel and to try to understand those like tiny disturbances that they are making. So what we wanted to do, we wanted to understand and feel through data how they are entering into some websites and going out from them, because we were able to spot the moment when they are like kind of like changing this media landscape through their activities. But then the research that we kind of like did for, I think it took us like maybe 9 months, 1 year, and it's research related to Facebook. So basically we wanted to understand how this is functioning. So on the one side you have like 1.6 billion, but basically now it's I think 2 billion active users of Facebook. So if we think about that, this is like bigger than China. China have 1.3 billion, India have 1.2 billion. This is like 223 times bigger than Serbia. So, and there is like 1 billion logins into Facebook every day, 300 petabytes of user data each day, 1.1 trillion likes since 2004, 4.45 billion likes every day, 3.1 million likes per minute, 17 billion location tag posts every day, 350 million uploaded photos every day, 4.7 billion items shared each day, 10 billion messages sent each day. So all of those things are some kind of input into this one huge factory, and on the output you have a revenue of 17 or almost 18 billion dollars each year. So what we were trying to understand is how all of those numbers on the left side are suddenly transformed into this 18 billion dollars. So, and then if you try to think about what this 18 billion dollars means, that means like 3.5 million annual wages in Serbia. So that means all the Serbian employees, all the people who are working basically in Serbia can be annually fed by this company. And then on the other side, we had some other numbers. It's that like from those 1 billion people that are working on Facebook each day, they're spending average 20 minutes. And so if you count this, you can understand that this is some kind of 300 millions of free working hours each day that we are providing to Facebook. And there is something related to this. It's kind of like in the beginning of 2000 something, there were some interesting media theorists mostly who were speaking about something it's called immaterial labor. And what they're saying that when you're clicking, scrolling, updating, commenting on Facebook, you're basically working for Facebook. And this is called like immaterial labor. So what we wanted to do is to try to understand how this really works. And so we try to do that from different ways. So for example, what you can do, you can try to understand how, for example, this human layer of Facebook is functioning. So you have like Mark Zuckerberg, and then you have Mark Anderson that also Bruce had in his presentation. You have Peter Thiel. Those are all the members of for example, Facebook board of directors. No? And then they have other companies that they own. They're connected on different ways. Some of them study together. Some of them have a mutual ownership of some companies, and so on and so on. But this was not what was like really our basic interest. On the other side, what we try to do is we try to understand how workers that are working in Facebook. What we did, we scrape all the LinkedIn accounts of I think 1,000 workers in Facebook. From where they're coming from, countries, and where they're working now. So different information about them. But still, this was not the answering to our main question. Is like how this our immaterial labor is transformed into those 18 billions per year. So what we did then, we tried to do something that is called like algorithmic transparency, or we wanted to achieve some form of algorithmic transparency, but not from the position of the regulatory body who have some kind of right to go there and ask them, okay, what are you doing, how your algorithms look like. We wanted to try to do this from the outside, from the position of like small group of investigators. And we came up with this map. And this map is so complex that you basically cannot read anything. But then if you zoom in, on the left side of the map, we try to list all the inputs into this black box. On the right side, all the outputs. What is the output of this black box is the product. Product is the profile, or groups of profiles. So it's similar what Chomsky is saying for like traditional media, that the product of like, for example, newspapers is not the newspaper itself, is basically audience that is reading the newspaper. This is what you are selling to the advertisers. You are selling the audience. In case of the Facebook, they are selling individual profiles or groups of profiles. So they are doing this kind of nano targeting, and each user of Facebook is basically the final product that is being sold. So, and we try to map all of this in some strange way. So on the left side, you have the input into this factory. So you have like different actions and behaviors that they're doing, like shares, search, whatever you can do there. You know? So we try to map all the different interactions that you can have with Facebook. Then the second group, it's a profile information. It's mostly what you think about yourself. So it's not what you do, but what you think about yourself. And Facebook basically says that this is not important for them because you can lie about yourself. But what you do in the previous section, action and behavior, this is important. What you do defines you as a target, not what you think about yourself. Do you think that you're male or female? Doesn't matter. But if you act as one or do as one, this is what really matters to them. Then the third or third group is digital footprint. It's basically what your devices think about you. So it's like different forms of data, metadata, cookies, and so on. And in some of our previous research, we mapped all the permissions that you're giving to Facebook. And there is like 1 zillion of them, and basically they are able to collect everything that you do on your mobile phone, and all of this becomes some kind of like data that they can process further. Then on other side, like on 50% of the websites that we are visiting during our browsing on internet, there is some cookies from Facebook and so on, so on. So that means that each time when we move somewhere on the internet, Facebook have a little part of information that we are there. So it's some kind of minefield. The internet is covered with some little mines by Facebook. And basically what is like really funny, it's not installed there by Facebook, but installed by us who are developing some websites or whatever. So we are including those like buttons and different forms of trackers for them. So this all becomes the resource for them. Google is even more aggressive in that. So 90% of the websites that we examine, and we examined a lot of websites, 90% of them there are Google trackers, almost 50% Facebook trackers. So, and then there are like different companies that are also exchanging data with Facebook. Here it's maybe not so aggressive, but in the United States you have companies like, for example, Axiom and others who are collecting different other types of data. For example, those affiliation cards, like when you're buying something in a supermarket and so on, so on. This is the data that is also traded, because it's a perfect match between them and Facebook to exchange data, because Facebook have all of our digital movements, and those other companies have our financial movements. So this is all on this left side of the graph, like which information is coming there. But on the right side of the graph, it's how basically they are selling this. So they are targeting us based on age, gender, location, ethnic affinity, life events, everything is mapped, you know. Also like political affiliation, like are we more conservative, liberal, or whatever. Different forms of detail targeting, different kinds of our behaviors, like what kind of devices we are using, what kind of software we are using, everything is important. How we are traveling, are we business travelers, commuters, currently traveling, frequent international traveling, so on, so on. So then we had like a left side and the right side. We had inputs and we had outputs, but what was the black box, the mystery, it's in between. And what we did, we found some 7,000 to 8,000 different patterns that was describing different parts of this map. So those patterns were saying to us, for example, how they are storing information, how they are basically processing some part of information. So there is something that's called action store, content store, ad store, and all of this become part of something that's called social graph. In this social graph, everything that we do, each post, each picture, everything becomes one node. Then those nodes are connected between each other with some edges and so on, so on. User profile store. But what is then on top of that, we have a different algorithms that are trying to basically extract information from that. And it's a kind of cybernetic system in which you have this kind of negative signals, because you are all the time correcting and feeding this monster. And every time when you like or not your profile, every move that you make is basically profiling you to more narrow field. And what is really interesting is like it's a mechanical digital system, no? So it's like able to correlate different events, different content, and it doing all of this by itself. So trying to extract keywords, then matching those keywords into some topic, then trying to understand how those topics can be named, and then trying to fit a lot of people within those topics and so on and so on. There are a lot of strange algorithms that are out there. So some of my favorite ones are for sure this routine estimation. So that every time when you log to Facebook, you are giving your location in a way, and then Facebook trying to understand, like, okay, you are logging in the morning here, that means that is your home. Then you are moving at 9 o'clock there, that means it's your job, and then trying to map your patterns of routines of behavior, and then when you have routine, then you can do anomalies. Then they know when you are traveling, when you are doing something different, when you are behaving different than your usual pattern is. And then there have different ways of because for them it's like really important to understand to which social class we belong. So what they are doing, it's not just based on how much we pay for something and how often we buy something through different Facebook platforms or whatever. It's also a combination of the places where we live and music we like and different forms of different things we do. So that means that our actions and behaviors are also putting us into some kind of social groups, and then that means we can be labeled as a part of some social strata. That means that we have a different price because someone who belongs to a different, like higher part stratas have a more potential to buy more, and that means it should be more targeted. If you are more poor, that means that you don't value for them as much. So it's kind of, you know, like a machine who is able to separate people into different classes and also do different kind of profiling, ethnic profiling, racial profiling, whatever. And then they're comparing financial transaction users to other users, doing a lot of crazy things. And also comparing, they're able to track people based how they exchange devices, because the content that we upload on Facebook have a metadata, and then they're associated metadata with the different devices, with different people, and so on. So they understand the moments when we exchange cameras. So it's go like really on that level. But the big picture is basically, so what is like really strange in this case is like, you know, this map that kind of became known in some circle, it's kind of also like really wrong. And it doesn't mean a lot, it's just kind of drawing. And more I'm trying to protect myself from this by really trying to say that I'm an artist, you know, because artists can do a lot of crazy shit. Because first you have, you know, different data belongs to different periods of time, and maybe those little algorithms were there just for 15 minutes, and then they exchange those algorithms for some other algorithms. No? Maybe those algorithms were never in place, and maybe they were used on some other way. So our possibility to really draw this kind of maps is like really limited. And I really strongly believe that even people in Facebook don't have possibility to understand the complexity of this system that they have. So this map is mostly wrong, but still it does represent some kind of effort to try to understand how this looks like. And if you really think about this map in some way of like historical view, it's a map, like for example, the view that like people were able to map something in antique Greek. So probably they didn't discover America for the moment. They didn't. They were mostly concentrated on Mediterranean, but did completely wrong some other parts of the world. So this map is also so not precise, but still it's the only one that exists. But I wanted to present now something else, and So we were doing this for years, like trying to map internet service providers, how data flow out in from Serbia, how metadata can be like examined, and so on, so on, so on. But then I had I've been to Barcelona to work with one artist called Joanna Moll, and then she really infected me about ideas about like materiality of all of those systems. So, for example, you have internet, and then those like thousands and thousands of devices that are there connecting us on different ways. But when we start to think about all of those devices, they have a vertical life. So they don't have just a life of doing what they do. They had like a really deep and long history of making. That is starting from like Big Bang to formation of solar system, to formation of Earth, to formation of elements that are being extracted, and then have a road that basically it's also really not transparent in the same way that the internet is not transparent. The way how all of those devices are appearing is complex enough. So what I try to do, there is like one really interesting professor called Christian Fuchs, and he really liked to think about some kind of contemporary views on Marxism, and he's really fan of those triangles. So those triangles means like you always need to have resources, and these resources are also a combination of tools and resources. You need to have a labor in order to produce some product. Okay, so this is basically what I try to do. I try to map through those triangles of labor how all of those devices that are becoming part of the internet or Facebook or other systems, are basically connected. So we are starting with the minefields in Congo, and then you have like all of those stories about exploitation and so on. Then you have smelters and refiners, and other problems like environmental problems. So, for example, digging like rare earths in China and so on, so on. Then this is transformed into going to component manufacturers. Then from there it's going to different assemblers. Then they're going to different distributors. All of this is done by transportation, and this transportation have another layers of labor, another layers. So we are basically really thinking about how those things that are embedded in this process are really becoming. And for example, in making of one iPhone, there is like transportation of all of those components like to the moon and back 2 times. And we really rarely think about that. On the other side, if we are speaking about elements that are there in those devices, so 50 years ago, we were using like really limited amount of elements that we were digging out because we were not interested in others and we maybe didn't know about it. But now, for example, into one iPhone, you have a 2/3 of periodic element table in order to make one iPhone. So we are still, and if you're thinking, so when we were producing before like 100 years, most of the things that we were embedding in those smart homes from 100 years ago, it was like from the radius of from a few hundred kilometers. Now, into those devices, we are embedding like materials and metals that are from almost all the parts of the world. And because we have those containers, they are traveling around, and we have like a lot of different labor included that is not there. And what is really interesting when you start to put this labor on the scale of how much all of these people earn, you are starting with the unpaid user labor. It's what we all do when we use Facebook, for example. Then it goes like underground miner in Congo, la 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 la. We in Serbia, we are somewhere here. You know, like our average salary is somewhere, you know, between call center agent in Philippines and repair services in China. So this is where we are. This is the class that we belong in some global process of manufacturing. But then when you go upper, you're coming to, you know, there was like a few years ago like this discussion about Foxconn assembly line workers, how hard it is, how whatever it is. But basically it's not so bad compared to us. It's like around $1,300 now. So it's like, okay. But then you go up. So then you're first appearing into American continent with Amazon warehouse worker starting with $2,100 per month, not so bad. Up, 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 a lot of up. So chief executives in US earn like 16,200 per month. So this is kind of up, and this is still nothing compared to Jeff Bezos and other guys. This is like average US. So you have like, it's strange that in this process that is completely invisible to us and we don't think about it, there is like difference of 1,000 times more. So sometimes somebody earns 1,000 times more than somebody else in this process. And this is kind of worrying. And for me, like really good illustration of all of this is some kind of fractal chain of production, because exactly. So we are starting with the one triangle that is combination of resources, labor, and product, and then those are creating another triangle, 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 and then it's becoming more and more and more. But each of those triangles consists exploitation, because there is someone who is exploiting this one triangle. And on the top of the triangle, because the device that I was exploring here, it's Amazon Echo, is, for example, Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos, or like owners of the company, should be able to exploit the biggest triangle in this. And I will not go into detail. Then this is the birth of the things. Then you have a life of the things that is basically this. So from our behavior to this device, and in this research I will not go into details because I think you will go to sleep. I tried to map all the processes from the moment when you say, hello Alexa, what's going on. So you have internet infrastructure, you have internet platforms and services, Amazon infrastructure, and to all of those devices, we should think back. All of those devices are born to this exploitation. You know? So all of them have embedded this sweat, blood, and metals in it, tears, and a lot of different things. And then at the end of this device, and what we see, it's just this little device at home. But behind this device, there is a huge, huge, huge infrastructure that is ending up with some kind of like artificial intelligence, whatever. But then I was trying to explore how this, what is the food for this artificial intelligence? And then you are coming at the end to some other forms of exploitation. And it's not exploitation of sweat, metals, and stuff. It's exploitation of nature through quantification. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to quantify both living and non-living nature, humans, animals, plants, whatever, and try to extract as much as we can data. So for example, we are mapping humans through their, for example, social body, through their current, to like economic and financial interactions, then companies, they have like different forms of quantification through profit, accounting, company stocks, ownership structure, a lot of different things. And then different kind of quantification through biometrics and so on, so on. So idea is that we should quantify everything. We should quantify living and not living, animals and plants, nature, and then on top of this quantification will become a new resource. And then this resource is joining with the resource from another forms of exploitation that I was speaking about. So, and then you have what is like really interesting when you think of, sorry for this like VJing in Illustrator, but so there is also like what is like really hype now in this process of like Internet of Things enabled by artificial intelligence or whatever. It's what is really crucial. It's a process of data preparation and labeling. So you have first, you need to have data, and then we should ask like who have data. Google, Facebook, and 5 big players. They have most of the data. Okay. But then you have a new layer of like, because all of this data need to be in some way prepared and labeled, and then again you have like some other forms of like hidden labor, who is like, for example, Amazon food and other forms of like, for example, like what is like hit now in this artificial intelligence field, it's like, for example, data from TED Talks. And this data from TED Talks, it's kind of like labeled through volunteers. Also Wikipedia. Also most of those things are basically volunteer work that now becomes resource for new exploitation. And we should think how our volunteer work and our like all of us contributing to I don't know, open source and all of this, there will be one blue triangle on top of that will try to suck data from there and try to make some new profit. So, and then at the end, sorry, when we go out from this life of things, again you have a death of things. Then again you have back to sweat, blood, and metals, and it's mostly happening again in the third world countries. So what we have here, it's like third world country, developing countries in the beginning, then going to first world countries for the life of things, and then coming back to the third world countries for the death of things. And then again we have, this time not us, but mostly India and China, where all of those devices are dying on different ways. And then all of this is becoming, again, part of some kind of geological process. So, okay, maybe I was kind of confusing on this part, but this is like what I wanted to explain is that like it's important to understand the horizontal networks, how they functioning, who have profit, which governments are sneaking over the data. But it's also really important to understand how all of those devices and all of this data that is there is basically born. Because we are now in a situation that like half of the Earth is basically doing like a lot of sweat and job, for the another half of the Earth, or little part of the Earth, is basically concerned about like privacy and other problems. So, thank you. If there is any problem. Now, party or questions or party? Thank you.
Starting at 11, the party, but it's starting now officially.
You sure you want to? I can go. Ne, neću da te zadržavam, da ti Dobro, pa što je sad onako malo ukočeno još posle letova i tako, ne? Ali u principu dobro. Da vidite ono slike tamo, ja kako izvukla sporište i ono je bilo baš neverovatno.
Samo da ugasim.